Hey guys, so unfortunately, I just need to make sure you're aware. Apparently, websites are dead and we're all out of jobs. So, time to put in an application at Costa, I suppose. I don't actually think that's the case. This is something that has been going around headlines. Lots of YouTube channels are throwing out, websites are dead. Google's killing search and all of that. I wanted to do a video about this myself. Late to the party, everyone's already done it, but I've been trying to get my thoughts together on this one, and I want to share that. Now, to me, this is a bit more about digital strategy, and I've got a baby channel where I do more long form content on that. I think I'm the only subscriber to it, but it's got a few views on some of the podcasty stuff, and really that's where I'm talking about digital strategy, what helps conversion, things like that. But and that's not so suited to this channel, I suppose. Whenever I've put SEO more focused stuff on, website tutorials or web dev tutorials, those have tanked even more than my usual channel views. Fine, everything is what it is. This is my humble little YT channel, and the simple fact is that putting stuff more about digital strategy and SEO just is doesn't seem to be of interest to people. However, I think it needs addressing here if we're kind of trying to understand the idea that if Google is killing search and lots of people in our web dev positions are thinking that we're now out of jobs, it's kind of relevant to talk about, isn't it? I don't think that websites are dead. I actually think that this what was announced about search with Google it's actually that websites have never been more important, and up until now I've always viewed them as being the most important asset that a business should get for itself. And so that's really what I want to kind of share here, why I don't think websites are dead and why I absolutely think they are more important than ever. Also, what we should do as web developers to respond to this and make sure that we are creating what should be created. Like, how does that affect our workflow or our choice of tech? Our stack. What should we be using to respond to this more appropriately? So yeah, let's jump into that. Before that, or kind of to set up for what I think is important for us to bear in mind. Another thing that's been floating around in the last few weeks, and I saw it on Bricks Builder community in Facebook just in the last couple of days, twice I think it was, is about FAQs and FAQ schema. And again, Google is dropping those. And I think it's important to develop a real critical thinking about stuff like SEO and conversion and everything. Because again, my response to the FAQ thing is not as dire as what everyone else is doing. Like, I know of like marketing folk who are like thinking that it's bad now to put FAQs on a blog post, for example, and certainly that putting FAQ schema on there is not advised. That's not what's been said. In fact, Google has said it's not a bad thing if you have FAQ schema or FAQs on a blog. But again, everybody's always going so polarized, and everyone's all so blimmin' dramatic, aren't they? But you need to exercise critical thinking in SEO, and I just, again, I think this is an example where that's not happening. So what is the deal with FAQs? Should you have them on the blog post and should you use FAQ schema with it? The answer is yes to both of them. So Google has dropped support for it, or it doesn't feature in SERP features. It hasn't for years, unless you're a government or health site anyway, like a more official government website or health focused site. It hasn't produced, hasn't put FAQs in SERP features anyway, for the longest time. And they've stated for a while also that it's not a ranking factor. But so we're not really losing anything. What are we losing? Well, nothing. Okay, so this is what is still the case with FAQs. it helps to provide further helpful content to people reading a blog or reading an about page or reading a service page. It helps to further their journey. FAQs are appropriate as a conversion tool on the page. All right, so it's helpful to people if they're reading something and then they need to go a little bit deeper into it. An FAQ section makes a lot of sense, especially on an about page for a local business or an about or a service page for a local business. In that instance, you absolutely should have an FAQ section on a website on that page. I have no doubt about that. The benefits of it are that, real sales objections or questions that a potential customer has can be addressed most effectively in an FAQ section. You can also establish, obviously, helpful links for them. So, they ask a further question like, do you provide this service in this area, or after that time, do you require a deposit, and blah, blah, blah. And the internal links would send that person to a page on your website where there is more information. There is no reason, you should have an FAQ section on those pages, without doubt. And where there is an FAQ section, there should be FAQ schema. All right. And there's no doubt about that either. So, this whole penduluming thing about FAQs, and now we can't have them on our site and whatever. Here, let's just make this clear. FAQs were not a ranking factor anyway. They helped to establish what information was about on a page, and it was in question and answer form, which could assist with information getting into snippets and bits and bobs like that on SERP features. Of course it could. It was helpful. It could also help ChatGPT or other LLMs process information, nice little snippets of questions and answers that would then also be featured or get mentions or serve as a source of information to get mentions. Now, it's because of that this idea that FAQs are being sort of pushed aside or not encouraged is because they've been hacked. It's because the idea of them has been abused and overused and been hacked. So there are marketing teams that would have this sort of policy that every post should have 5 FAQs afterwards. And often that's with very thin content, where it pretty much takes a point of the article and puts it in a question and answer form. It's not expanding on the information and providing further helpful content. The reason why people have been using FAQs or overusing FAQs in recent times is to optimize for ChatGPT mentions and snippets and things like that. It's not been helpful to the actual content of the page, and so quite rightly, if anything, it should be kind of discouraged. So I'm all on board with that. But if you're using them properly, if you're using them effectively and with relevance, you should be using them. And as for any information on our website pages, whether it's a product page or an article page or a service page, it should have the relevant schema. Why? Because, again, AI does read the front end content, and that is really important. It's important to understand that it does take the front end HTML, all the snippets that it's been provided with. But in order to further validate the information and confirm that it has crystal clear clarity on what it's read, it does look and check the schema. On my other little channel, it's an article on my chrisgood.online site as well, if you want to have a look at it. I interviewed ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini about how they use schema and why they use schema, and it was really, really interesting, and nothing that I've looked at anywhere else has gone against my findings there. But ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude, but mainly ChatGPT and Gemini, they take the information at face value on a web page, so what you and I would read. But here's the really important thing. ChatGPT would then, as layer 2, rely on the schema to confirm what it has read. So if it is feeling that details are a bit ambiguous, or if it's not entirely sure and certain on what is being said or what is being portrayed, then it will then check schema, the deeper code, the back-end code to validate what it's needing to say. And this is more the case during recommendation. So if it kind of understands who it's talking about, it will mention it, make mention in a conversation. If it is asked to recommend something or someone, it wants to ensure that this person is legitimate, is linked up to a proper ecosystem of brand and professionalism. And this is when schema comes into play. So if you want to have ChatGPT recommendations, schema for the information on your pages is absolutely so important. And so again, that principle is there for FAQs, it's there for products, it's there for local business schema. Rich results are so important. Gemini out of the gate, and therefore AI mode and Google AI search, uses schema straight away. Okay, so it takes that front end content, but it also digs straight into the schema to ensure that it's validating all of the information it's read on the front end. But it's bigger than that as well. What it's trying to do is connect the entity that it's looking at, the web page about a product, service, a person, a brand, is taking that entity and it's trying to connect it, discover its fuller knowledge graph. Okay, so the knowledge graph is all of the different entities. So that's a related LinkedIn profile. It's related reviews on a Trustpilot page. It's the person's LinkedIn. Did I say LinkedIn profile? It's the person's YouTube channel. It's the TikTok. All of these different entities related to that brand. That is what Gemini plugs into straight away. Now that's the Google ecosystem, and that is what AI search and Gemini search uses out of the gate. Information that's on the front end, sure. Contextual understanding, absolutely. But it immediately plugs straight into rich results, schema markup, and the wider knowledge graph. That includes Google Business Profile and all of those local map entities and bits of information also. So just, I've already gone a little bit into the whole Google I/O's AI search kind of thing, but I wanted to say that when it comes to stuff like FAQ, and this whole fuss, the big thing that algorithms are always trying to sort overcome is people trying to hack the system to optimize for search results or for ChatGPT mentions or AI search mentions. That is not what any of these services are wanting. They don't want you to optimize for that. They want you to optimize for helpful content, conversion focused content that when somebody goes to the website, they're not going to like have a look at it and go, all of this is just bullet lists and stupid FAQs with no, with thin content. And then they go back to the search results. That's not well done SEO, is it? It never has been. And so what's being encouraged here is the proper use of information, to be helpful content for conversion. So anyway, FAQs, they are relevant. FAQs should have schema, and that's a little bit deeper into why we should have all of the information serving as schema with a schema backend. Now, when we consider that, we come also into this whole thing about AI search. Okay, is it scary that we're going to have zero click through to websites? Well, yeah, of course it is. It's not great. Does that mean that websites are no longer relevant? No, they are more important than ever. And this is why, unless my screen freezes. So, yay. This is the old kind of system, okay? We would have Google search, and Google search would throw people somewhere into our funnel, depending on their query. If they're just looking for information, just light stuff like, oh, what is this? Or what is the problem with my roof? Or, whatever. Some solutions might be known or discovered, and they might then have some consideration queries, comparing products, all of that, mid-funnel types of things. And the idea of a proper website presence would be that we have all of this topical information established on our website to serve these queries. And then we would have the transaction at the bottom. We get them into our funnel, we bring them to a transaction. What's feeling a bit scary is that progressively, Google or AI search, ChatGPT, whichever, they've been taking all of this process into conversation, and we've had fewer click-throughs to our websites. Okay, that's fine in some ways, because when they have served websites to people, they've been further down the funnel. They've had higher intent. This is okay. We still get the transaction. What we're feeling scared about now is that according to the new way that Google will do search, there is a 0-click possibility here. AI will handle the entire conversation all the way through to a book, buy, or call. And we feel a bit out of control there. But this is my point. This is my take on this anyway. As far as I'm concerned, this just strengthens the idea that the website is the most important business asset, or the most important asset in a business's digital strategy. And as a digital strategy nerd, really that's where I sit quite happy. I think that's really bloody exciting. And it really defines how we need to start working with the development of websites. So we're more on the front of web development, at least my audience on this channel. I personally think that we should be very embedded into the idea of marketing and conversion. And I think that marketing teams should certainly be more aware of the technical side. They should know what schema is and how to put that onto a blog post that they've written. I don't think there's enough overlap personally, but then I'm a generalist. I have a broader knowledge across all of these different systems. But this to me just tells me that it should be more blended up. And the thing that underpins the whole system, the thing that makes us something that search would talk about us or mention us for in this conversation, the way that we are going to show up in Google's new search system, new search conversations, is to have the most awesome topical authority, schema confirmed context, okay? So that context that shows reliability and connects to our wider knowledge graph and shows all of those different entities that reinforce our topical authority, our trust signals, all of that. A website is the center of the brand prominence, okay? And that's going to bring us into the conversation. The bit we've got to figure out is that, because all of this has been a battle that we've been fighting for a while anyway. How do we get ChatGPT mentions and blah, 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 or recommendations? That's something that we've kind of gotten used to anyway. And what we really should know is that it's about tip-top best practice SEO. That's what it is. And we want to optimize for getting those mentions. But now, how do we optimize for getting that transactional point, that point of sale, the fulfillment layer? Well, this doesn't scare me either, because if we've done enough that we are getting mentioned by AI as having the product or the service or the information on that anyway, that's earning us a mention in the chat, then our product or service would likely be provided as the solution at the end of that conversation. Although we have to make sure that we have that fulfillment layer in our website, because it's our website that is serving this whole purpose. All right, websites aren't dead. They are the mechanism by which we will best be mentioned in this system. Now, here's the thing. For a while, we know that the term multimodal has been around, okay, and has been the way that we can get more visible to generative engine optimization. Now, everyone throws the terms around as though it's some big puzzle, right? And it's not. It's a case of, we used to just be about getting onto search listings and somebody going to our website. Now, our marketing has to be stuff like what I'm doing here, YouTube, or we might repurpose that to a podcast also, or shorts on Instagram or TikTok. All of those, these are all marketing visibility digital channels. But it all has to end somewhere, and all of them should be pointing to our website, and our website should be pointing to all of those. This is called the knowledge graph. And the broader your knowledge graph, and the more topical your knowledge graph, and the more correctly set up your knowledge graph is. Has my screen frozen again? I think it has. Damn it. So I can't point. So we've got topical authority on the right there, schema confirms context, and then the brand prominence. All of that is achieved by having a hub of information, a central location for our knowledge graph, and that has to have same as set up within our schema. So our website would have, this is Chris Good of Boosh Digital, same as Feud Studio, Gen CSS. It would link also to this YouTube channel and to my other little digital strategy podcast. It would link to my LinkedIn, and that is what gives Google search or ChatGPT this knowledge of who I am and in context. It would also link to any mentions that other brands or other people, review sites, are giving of my brand. And that is what gives it confidence in who I am, what I offer, and whether I have experience, expertise, authority, or trustworthiness. All of the old signals of SEO, it's all there. But here's the thing. And seeing as that isn't working, let's just go to face, you and I. All right, let's chat this out. Okay, web development should be done with the conversion journey and marketing in mind. A website should be crafted for all of these things, to house correct schema, to have blog posts that can serve all of those informational and consideration queries. It's the content of our website that will be explored by ChatGPT, Bing, or Google, AI search, Gemini. All of those will be searched. We'll be searching all of our websites, and we want them to be readable. We want them to be understandable. We want them to be optimized for helpful content that it can bring into the conversation. We want the schema in place so that not only is the information on each page correctly laid out and clear. So this is a product page. These are the frequently asked questions about this product, and it links to further information. If somebody asks a follow-up question in that conversation, there should be a frequently asked question that maybe even links to another blog post on your site. And it's this clear information that is going to help you get mentioned and talked about and be a source of information. And again, this is just traditional proper SEO. This is how it always should have been done. So my screen's frozen. I can't sort that out. So let's just talk on these terms then. So I find that actually really quite encouraging. All right, but we have to build with all of that in mind. And the scary bit then is, if we understand that we should optimize sites to have great information architecture, clear schema, we kind of understand that already, and that the website should be part of a wider ecosystem. It should be linked to our Google business profile, to our LinkedIn, to blah, 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 blah. The schema should be doing that. How do we integrate this fulfillment layer into our websites, into our digital presence, so that can work in the conversation? Because the scary thing is that in a zero-click search result, in a zero-click search conversation in Google AI mode or whatever you want to call it, the idea is that suddenly Gemini or whatever would say, okay, cool, right, now you've got all the information. This is the one I would recommend. Do you want to buy it now? Click this button. How do we get that functional? It's actually looking like it's quite simple. So in terms of Google AI search, all of that AI mode, If we're selling products, we need to have Google Merchant Center set up. Here's the thing, we should have been doing that anyway, right? Like proper SEO, proper conversion focus should have had that being the case anyway. But it's just steps that a lot of people haven't taken. Now it's the new game. Now it's the best practices. And now it's absolutely essential because it's not just about getting people to mention your site and then you've got a button on your own website. It's a case of, well, okay, the location of the sale has altered and now you have to have a sort of a kiosk over there. You have to have that button in that location. To get that button into the conversations that are being had about you, hopefully, and your product, you need to hook up with Google Merchant Center. And that will give the AI mode the ability to pull that button into the conversation. That's pretty cool. What about local service businesses though? Because they don't have a product. You don't have a merchant center for a local plumber book or call. This is when, surprise, surprise, Google Business Profile is going to step into the ring. You need to set that up with your Google Business Profile, and that will give the link that's necessary, the integration, so that can be pulled into the conversation. So somebody has an informational query. I don't know if I'll be able to show this. I can't point to it. No. So somebody has an informational query at the top there, and they go along to, AI mode. I've got this problem. What is that? And the conversation is had. Well, it could be this thing or that thing. You probably need this person or that person. These are in your area. It's knowing where the person is. It probably even knows a bit more about them at this point, what their budget might be, blah, blah, blah. It takes all of that into consideration and starts to qualify different people to make a recommendation, and it will provide possible professionals. But then it's like, okay, well, you don't have to go to their website. I can actually book in. They have this availability. Do you want to do that? And of course, a lot of people are going to be like, well, I've learned about this. I trust AI mode. I trust the information I'm getting. And now I can click this button and it's booked and I'm sorted. Of course, people are going to do that. People are already doing that when they can. So fine. All right. That works well. But it's that person having had their website created and information curated and schema put in place and their Google Business Profile set up and all of that integration arranged. It's that tradesperson making sure that's in place that has had them mentioned, discussed, recommended, and then having that book or call take place within the conversation. To me, this just reinforces the idea that within that whole digital strategy of conversion, awareness and then conversion, okay, it's scary that it's all taken into this conversation and we're not even part of that. I understand that. But for me as a web developer, it doesn't scare the hell out of me because I'm like, well, if you want a fighting chance in that one, you need a website. More than that, you need a website that's built well. So, by the way, not an AI slop kind of vibe coded website. And by the way, you need the digital strategy around that. You need to have informed schema set up and good content created. As far as I'm concerned, this is a new day, a new era for the essential nature of a well-built, professionally managed website. That's not doomsday to me. Is it doomsday to you? I find that quite encouraging. Now let's talk practically. What actual tools and website would WordPress do well for this? It can do, yeah. WordPress isn't going anywhere. It's still great for SME websites if you want that. It's not as fast. It's not as secure. There's a lot more maintenance. You can hook that up quite easily with your business profile. Of course you can. That's cool. Google Merchant Center though, bit more difficult to integrate WooCommerce with Google Merchant Center. You can do it. It is actually possible, but there are more hoops to jump through, and you've got to hope that something doesn't trip up that handshake that's going on between the two. But it is possible. Okay, so practically that's how you can consider that. But Google Merchant Center integration is the way you want to go. Personally, I recently did a video on how Feud Studio can help you build with Astro. And let's remember, I'm just like done with WordPress as much as I can be now anyway, because Astro is a better system. But also in 15 minutes, I was able to hook up a Shopify website with that, and away I went, you know? Now, here's the thing. Shopify is pretty much Google Merchant Center. It's a direct integration. It's the same schema. It's the same information layout between products. And if you've got that with an Astro front end, you can do anything you want with that. You know, you're free to do anything you want with the presentation, with your website, with the surrounding content, with information and consideration query kind of content. You know, everything that informs Google or other, you know, AI mode type conversation LLMs. You can do everything that you need to do with Astro and Shopify. And Shopify is directly integrated with Google Merchant Center. Like, it couldn't get cleaner, you know? So to me, that just kind of really cements my feeling that I'm moving into the best tech stack, Astro and Shopify, or Astro and anything else. And surrounding that, there's more of a reliance on conversion and wider digital strategy and the use of the wider ecosystem. That doesn't just mean Google, by the way, so Google Maps and Google Business Profile. ChatGPT is Bing based, so you need to have, Bing Webmaster all set up. You know, that's the Google Business Profile equivalent. That's essential. You need to step more into that ecosystem as well and ensure you have all your ducks in a row there. But essentially, at the core of that, everyone is sharing schema. All right, that was a joint effort by all of the big dogs in this industry. Let's have information schema so we can read it clearly and know what's what. Everyone just has to play the game. A lot of people aren't playing the game, but now it's more essential to do so. So here's my battle plan. You need to have a good, decent website that's still serving up all of the content that is SEO focused or helpful content focused for all different areas in that funnel, in that awareness, information, consideration, transactional funnel. It has to be underpinned by technical SEO, and that means on-page schema and also knowledge graph schema and rich results and all of that in place. There has to be a digital strategy put in place there with digital PR and topical authority established for a brand. And the natural location for that hub of the knowledge graph there is a website. Okay, so that's what the game now is. Websites are more important than ever. And then, of course, you need to get that fulfillment layer sorted out in your digital strategy. And again, that would be the case of Google Merchant Center for commerce and Google Business Profile integration for local services. Yeah, how exciting is that? So anyway, I hope you found that interesting. Bit of a blast on that one. This has been churning over in my mind for the last few days. I'm of the mind that a website is just the central asset in a wider digital strategy. And I think that it's just getting closer to the time when having all of the ducks in the row in that whole thing is just now essential. I'm going to leave it with that. I'd love your comments on this one. Please give me your take on this. I'd love the discussion on this one. But yeah, I certainly don't think it's a doomsday for web devs at all. I just think we've got to choose the best tools, the best process, and keep that end goal and the conversion journey in mind. And yeah, for me, that's Astro, Shopify, Astro, Google Business Profile, digital strategy, thumbs up. Right, cool. Like, subscribe. Don't forget, Feud Studio is there for you to purchase. Also, Gen CSS. So if you are looking for a really fantastic code editor to help you with your static website and Astro builds, you've got to give Feud Studio a look-see. So go to feudstudio.com. It's only $49.99, and that's unlimited websites because it's a desktop app. Yeah, cool. Right, any questions? Shoot me Shoot me questions below. And I hope you have a good day. All right, cheers.